Speaking of the production of copium in America, let's see how Fox News is coping with this additional revelation. I don't know how many more revelations we need, but another one.
More, by the way, from Capitol Hill today. House Democrats releasing new Epstein emails, some of them referencing President Trump. The White House is pushing back on those emails and how the media is portraying them. Fox News senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy has the latest. Peter.
And, Will, officials here at the Trump White House, of course, would rather talk about their efforts to get the government reopened, something they hope happens later on today. But instead of just talking about that, they are also talking about these newly released emails, including this one from 2011. It is Jeffrey Epstein emailing his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. This one says, "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim, redacted name, spent hours at my house with him, has never once been mentioned." Officials here, though, are puzzled about why Democrats redacted the name of a victim, since that victim wrote a whole book about all this.
Yeah, so like the victim in question is, in this case, Virginia Giuffre, who recently committed suicide and also released a memoir.
Redacted the name of a victim, since that victim wrote a whole book about all this.
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President Trump has always said is that...
Wow, just going straight for it. Just go like up is down, left is right. This proves nothing. This proves that he did nothing wrong.
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President Trump has always said is that he was from Palm Beach, and so was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until President Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and he was a creep. And this email you refer to with the name of a victim that was unredacted now and has since been reported.
It's like how when one alpha lion kicks another like alpha lion out the pack. Like, I guess Jeffrey Epstein was, or maybe like Jeffrey Epstein was the scar to like President Trump's Lion King Mufasa type situation.
With the name of a victim that was unredacted now and has since been...
Didn't it say that actually in one of the other mini drops that have happened, that like they were like tired of competing over the same woman? Like Jeffrey Epstein stole a girl from Donald Trump, like the competing sex traffickers, like...
with the name of a victim that was unredacted now and has since been reported on in this room, so I will go ahead and say it, Virginia Giuffre. And it was CBS's own reporting, Ouija, that recently wrote that Miss Giuffre maintained, and God rest her soul, that she maintained that there was nothing inappropriate she ever witnessed, that President Trump was always extremely professional and friendly to her.
House Oversight Republicans are saying Democrats continue to carelessly cherry-pick documents to generate clickbait that is not grounded in the facts. The Epstein estate has produced over 20,000 pages of documents on Thursday, yet Democrats are once again intentionally withholding records that name Democrat officials. Democrats should stop politicizing this investigation and focus on delivering transparency, accountability, and justice for survivors. And officials here...
Well, I mean, I think since like the president is the person in question, it does take precedence over other names, although I think all the names should be released. It's really only the Republicans who are stopping that because of Trump, obviously.
Basically believe that the biggest tell that all of this is politics as usual from congressional Democrats, as opposed to an effort by Democrats to get justice for Epstein victims, is that congressional Democrats lost all interest in this during the Biden administration.
Oh, here we go.
That is indisputable.
Of course.
That is indisputable, as is the name Virginia Giuffre, who specifically contradicted what is suggested today by the press and by Democrats from these emails.
It's so funny to like mention that whole thing. Like, okay, well, the Democrats didn't show any interest in this, and so why are they so interested in it now? Because the people who are currently in power in the Trump administration like led whole campaigns about it when they were out out of power. People like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino covered it extensively. So like they're part of the reason that it's back in the news. They're part of the reason that it stayed alive. And so like it is a little weird. It is very weird actually that the moment they get into positions of power under Donald Trump, who seems to be implicated in those files, suddenly their tune changes, despite the fact that they were leading the charge against those things. Even people who were leading the charge with them before they took those positions think it's weird.
I do think, Peter, the other big takeaway is the emails between Jeffrey Epstein and journalist Michael Wolff, who seemed to be coaching Epstein through this entire enterprise on how to blackmail President Trump.
If not coaching, then at a minimum advising, and to the point that the White House
to blackmail someone you don't have any dirt on.
The lack of interest that congressional Democrats had during the Biden years. The folks who are on the Democratic side who say now that it is an urgent national security issue to get these Epstein documents out lost 4 years worth of momentum, and now they are back.
Not to defend Democrats, but Biden wasn't implicated in those Epstein files the same way Trump seems to be. So if the president is one of the key people implicated in the files and that stuff might be used as blackmail material, then it does become a lot more of a national security risk than if just like any other person is the president. It is a lot more of an issue, obviously.
White House thinks the timing of everything is suspicious, and basically that they are just these House Democrats are sitting on different things to selectively leak on days that the news might be bad for them, like the day that even they're
having a hard time with it.
We'll see how it plays out.
Do you think they called it?
Peter Ducey. Hey,
do you think they called it a hoax again? I bet they called it a hoax again. Let me see. Let me check. Do you think they called it a hoax? Oh yeah, here it is. Here it is. I see it. Oh, yep. Twice. They called it a hoax twice. The Democrat hoax.
Administration has done more.
The Democrat hoax that many members of the Republican Party who are now in power fell for hook, line, and sinker.
More than any. And it just shows how this is truly a manufactured hoax by the Democrat Party. For now they're talking about it all of a sudden because President Trump is in the Oval Office. But when Joe Biden was sitting in there, the Democrats never brought this up. This wasn't an issue that they cared about because they actually don't care about the victims in these cases.
Oh, yeah.
They care about trying to score political points against President Trump, as we have, of course, seen with this government shutdown requests. So this had been...
Of course. And this is so hard to defend. This is such an own goal by the Trump administration that like it's hard to imagine how you would properly defend against this, but they're really bad at it. They answer questions about this in perhaps the least believable, most like suspicious way imaginable. And that's why I always highlight that if you were being interrogated by the police or if you were showing up on the news and defending yourself like this, like if someone was bringing charges against you and there was all of this circumstantial evidence and you were like, oh, that's a hoax created for your consumption by like my ops, they would not take that seriously. Like this is so suspicious. Every time they answer or do things like this,
Democrats are getting an assist from the media because the media, I mean, yesterday I was flipping around. It was around 5, 6 o'clock at night, and they were literally voting in the Senate. I mean, they were literally voting in the House, rather. Pardon me. And they would not even talk about the government shutdown coming to an end on CNN. They were wall-to-wall on Jeffrey Epstein. They would not discuss the fact that the Democrats, in their eyes, caved. And that's the way CNN saw it, that the Democrats caved. I mean, this is really activist media. It's unbelievable.
They did cave, and Trump is in the Epstein files. Both things are true.
Because the American people who believe that they're being misled. We all know that. Look, the Epstein part, it's just them trying to deflect away from the real problem. The real problem here is that the Democrats, the Senate Democrats, Chuck Schumer, John Ossoff,
it's a deflection.
They voted 14 times to keep the government closed.
Of course. This is all a deflection from the fact that they kept the government closed. I mean, that's why Mike Johnson refused to swear that new representative in. That's why they're currently leading hold on, because it's not just them talking about it in the media as a hoax. They're also leading sit down meetings with Republican members of the House who are also trying to get this stuff released. If you assume good faith on this issue from people like Tom Massey. So yeah, this is breaking exclusive from CNN. The Epstein files House vote effort prompted a sit-down meeting with top Trump officials. So they're making their backroom deals.
National Affairs correspondent Jeff Zeleny, he is at the White House for us. Jeff, good to see you. Sources telling CNN that top administration officials met today in the Situation Room about the House vote. What does that tell us? What are we learning?
It's called a conspiracy.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that in the briefing today, confirming our CNN reporting that Lauren Boebert, of course, a single member of Congress, not a leadership member, not on any key committees, had that meeting in the Situation Room with the Attorney General of the United States, with the Deputy Attorney General, with the FBI Director. And of course, Lauren Boebert is one of the Republicans who has said she would cross over and sign that discharge petition, which would allow the House to go forward and vote on releasing the Department of Justice Epstein files. Lauren Boebert has just told our colleagues on Capitol Hill that she has no plans of changing her pledge to vote for that. But that extraordinary meeting here at the White House just underscores the stakes of all of this. The White House sought to explain the meeting in the Situation Room earlier today like this.
Yeah, hard to understand how there could be stakes for the White House unless he's deeply intertwined in these files, right? Unless you believe, and you'll have to forgive me for being cynical, unless you believe that the Trump administration cares about victims of sexual violence and protecting their story and their feelings.
Sought to explain the meeting in the Situation Room earlier today like this.
It is not a coincidence that the Democrats leaked these emails to the fake news this morning ahead of Republicans reopening the government.
Why are White House officials then meeting with Representative Boebert in an effort to try and get her to not sign this petition calling for the release of the files?
Doesn't it show transparency that members of the Trump administration are willing to brief members of Congress whenever they please? Doesn't that show
Doesn't meeting with someone in a back room to secure a deal to prevent them from revealing that I may or may not be an alleged nonce and involved in a human sex trafficking organization, isn't that the height of transparency? Because you knew the backroom deal took place. You just didn't know what was discussed.
our level of transparency?
So an extraordinary briefing by any measure. I cannot recall a time where effectively a rank and file member of Congress would have such a high level briefing in the Situation Room of all things. But never mind that.
Witness tampering,
President
basically.
Trump also pushing back in a very significant way on Truth Social throughout the day about the release of the Epstein files. I'll read you just a flavor of some of what is on his mind.
Oh, wow. Do you think it's going to make him sound innocent? Do you think whatever he's posting on Truth Social is going to make him sound innocent? I hadn't seen these posts yet. I think he's going to come across as somebody who's not hiding anything at all in this post.
I'm
going to take the contrarian position. This is real science.
Just a flavor of some of what is on his mind, Casey. The president writes this: the Democrats, he says, are trying to bring up the Jeffrey Epstein hoax again because they'll do anything at all to deflect on how badly they've done on the shutdown and so many other
Jeffrey Epstein hoax.
Only a very bad or stupid Republican would fall into that trap. Any Republicans
he loves calling Republicans stupid for falling into the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. The thing that unified such a huge portion of the MAGA base, that the people in his own party that he highlighted as by putting them in positions of authority over the DOJ and in the FBI, that they were just pushing these narratives, and suddenly it's a hoax and anyone who believes it is stupid. This is why his approval rating is tanking, because he cannot stop doing things like this.
Other subjects. Only a very bad or stupid Republican would fall into that trap. Any Republicans involved should be focused only on opening up our country. However, when the new member from Arizona is sworn in, the discharge petition is scheduled to happen sometime after that, and then the shutdown vote happens later this evening. But the bottom line to all of this is the whole reason the House of Representatives has been away for nearly 2 months. It is to effectively try and end the whole Epstein conversation. Well, that is right back.
Exactly.
This afternoon in ways the White House could not
the
have
Epstein
anticipated. So yes, they were scrambling
the Epstein
a bit
conversation.
On this, but again,
I forgot to mention that the Epstein conversation that was going on in the House predates the shutdown. Like, it predates it. Like, Mike Johnson was trying to prevent that from happening before the shutdown even occurred.
Try and end the whole Epstein conversation. Well, that is right back happening this afternoon in ways the White House could not have anticipated it. So yes, they were scrambling a bit on this. But again, we should point out, even though the president's name has been mentioned several times in these in very interesting ways, still no evidence of any wrongdoing by him. But a question is,
no direct evidence. Search I think you have to say no direct evidence, because I feel like there's tons of circumstantial evidence, right? Like, there's so much circumstantial evidence that and again, I'm not trying to allege knowledge of anything. I'm not trying to allege that the president of the United States of America committed any kind of crime, because he's very litigious about that. All I'm trying to say is that given the amount of circumstantial evidence that is currently out there, the very weird birthday poem that was situated in the outline of what appeared to be a prepubescent girl, but whatever. I mean, I don't know. That could be a lot of things. He's saying that he didn't write that, but he's also not going to sue them over it. Like, stuff like this, like these emails, all of the testimony from his brother and people around him who said Trump, they were always hanging out, they were best friends. That incredibly weird, almost childlike drawing of him getting a massage at Mar-a-Lago. My thing is just if Trump is not directly involved in anything that would be untoward, and I also have to include as evidence the way Trump has reacted when questioned about any of this stuff, which is super, super suspicious. But all of that together, right? If he is not directly implicated in any of this stuff, he certainly does a really, really poor job of living his life, because he's lived his life in such a way that it's painted the incredibly, I think, compelling and reasonable to assume picture that he is, right? You would still have to question the way someone has lived their life where all of this evidence exists that they're a nonce, but they're not one. And I don't even mean subtle evidence. All the stuff that I just described, there's so much smoke that it would still displace at least some kind of decision-making flaw that he has so much evidence like this out there. It'd be wow, you may not be a nonce, but you sure play one on television. You know what I mean? Why did you leave so much evidence of this?
wrongdoing by Jeffrey Epstein, and that is less clear. Casey?
A remarkable set of facts at hand. Jeff Zeleny, thanks very much for that reporting. All right, our panel is here. CNN
it'd be a remarkable
CNN political
coincidence.
Commentator, Republican strategist and pollster Kristen Soltis Anderson, CNN political commentator Sochi Hinojosa, and CNN senior political commentator, former Trump campaign advisor David Urban. We're also joined by Donald Trump's former attorney, Bill Brennan. Thank you all for being here on what is quite a newsy day. And David Urban, you're laughing to yourself.
Yeah, everyone's laughing. Everyone's laughing because if you have two brain cells, you can put the picture together pretty clearly. It's not funny though; it's disgusting.
This is
but it's
part of this release from
very
House
darkly
Oversight
funny.
Democrats here. I thought it was noteworthy that Caroline Leavitt used the word pedophile.
Well, I mean, that's just using his government name.
Here. I thought it was noteworthy that Caroline Leavitt used the word pedophile to describe Jeffrey Epstein. In the past, we've not heard White House.
That was a Freudian slip on her part because she had just been talking to Trump. Yeah, no, let's dig in more to the White House's pressure campaign to prevent the Epstein vote.
then in U.S. history finally over. President Trump signing the bill to reopen the government late last night after it was passed by the House. But as Washington turns a page on that battle, new fallout is looming over the White House from the newly released trove of documents in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Among the files, multiple emails from Epstein that specifically mention Donald Trump's name. The White House is now ramping up pressure on House Republicans after 4 of them, including 3 women, signed a discharge petition to force a vote on fully releasing the Justice Department's files on Epstein. That vote now set to happen next week. One of Epstein's survivors telling CNN she's grateful to that handful of Republicans and urged them to stand firm.
I think that there's just such a broader message that for those women, particularly Marjorie Taylor Greene, Boebert, and Mace, I think they are really standing up for women everywhere. And they're saying, they're throwing down the gauntlet of what is acceptable in society.
And new this morning, new CNN exclusive reporting on Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's longtime associate and now convicted sex trafficker, and her life behind bars. Sources telling CNN she now gets special privileges, including private use of the chaplain's office for visitors, the warden personally helping her send emails, and yes, even unlimited toilet paper. CNN's Elena Treen is at the White House with the very latest on this morning. What are you learning?
Yeah, look, Sarah, yesterday was a dizzying day of political intrigue, and it really cast a dark cloud over Republican hopes of claiming victory over the government shutdown and passing that bill to reopen the government. Now, the president, of course, signed that bill last night, but it finished off a day that brought new urgency to this issue that he has tried repeatedly, as well as has his team, to try and shrug off, but he just can't shake it. It's an issue that keeps coming back and bringing new information every time it does. And of course, there was those new emails from Jeffrey Epstein's private estate over the last 15 years that mentioned the president by name. And ever since then, ever since those were released, the White House has really been in damage control mode. And my colleagues and I broke yesterday that part of that was to bring Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, one of the people who ultimately did join that petition, bringing her to the White House, and not just coming to the White House, but bringing her to the Situation Room, the room where presidents go over war plans, to try and urge her not to sign her name. Now, the White House has argued that that was a sign of transparency. Listen to how Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, put it.
Oh, let's go over the same thing. It's just really funny to claim that's a sign of transparency. I wonder what the situation in question was.
Denied any wrongdoing, and the president has not been charged with any crimes as it relates to Epstein. But all of this just continues to bring new urgency to that question of why isn't the president releasing these, particularly after he and his supporters for years had argued that the files must be made public. And really, why isn't he willing to release these and get justice for these victims who have been
I think that photo explains it.
By Epstein? And so the question continues is going to be, how does this White House continue to deal with this, particularly as
just 2 tomcats out on the town having a good time? Like, what? Come on, man. You telling me these 2 guys aren't friends? Let's do a little body language analysis. Like, these guys are like friends. These guys are obviously friends. There's just so much smoke. It'd be so, imagine that. Just think to yourself, imagine if there was nothing going on. Imagine what that would mean. Imagine how ridiculous that would be, right? Like, it'd be so ridiculous that it would actually make less sense. And it would also make you think like worse of Trump. You'd be like, he's like the Mr. Bean of coming across like accidentally as a minor attracted president. Like he's just like always bumbling his way into like weird situations with Jeffrey Epstein without any rhyme or reason. It wouldn't make any sense. You'd be like, what? Like it would, like I said, it would show a lack of discernment that would be even worse than like, well, not even worse, but like even harder to believe than like what he's trying to disguise right now.
know that this vote is going to happen next week to try and force the Justice Department to release the materials they have. And one of the questions I know that has really been something that I think this White House is struggling with, Sarah, is
enigmas never age. Why would you say something like that?
The question of, did the president know more than what he has said publicly? All of that they're dealing with today.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions that people want answered. Elena Treen, thank you so much for your reporting, John.
All right, let's get right to CNN political analyst, White House Bureau Chief, Washington.
I don't want to hear the analysis. You know how I feel about that. It's just so bananas. It's just. Oh, this is Fox News coping with it. Yeah, let's just watch a little bit more cope, and then we'll go to Trump and we'll see what else he's doing to alienate himself from his fans.
The president and his team are questioning the timing of the new Epstein emails that were released earlier today by Democrats. Senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy has that part of the story for us tonight. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, John. Officials here are claiming that if congressional Democrats really cared about advocating for Jeffrey Epstein's victims, then we would have heard a lot more from congressional Democrats.
That's like legitimately all they have. All they have is like, how come when you were in power, you didn't want to do anything, and now that we're in power, you suddenly think it's a big deal. And like, it forgets, like, I think the two key facts. The first is that Donald Trump is the center of this. He's at the nucleus of this like particular campaign. And the second is that like he was and his followers were the ones who were pushing for more transparency on this issue. And so suddenly being in power and then like not wanting that transparency is extra weird, especially like once you dig even like an inch beneath the surface and you see how many times his name comes up.
Out Jeffrey Epstein during the 4 years that Joe Biden was president. And instead, we are seeing these big leaks like the one today, selectively, according to the White House, that claims that Donald Trump knew in 2011 about Epstein's crimes.
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong.
The president himself muses the Democrats are trying to bring up the Jeffrey Epstein hoax again because they'll do anything at all to deflect on how badly they've done on the shutdown and so many other subjects. Only a very bad or stupid Republican would fall into that trap.
When Joe Biden was sitting in there, the Democrats never brought this up. This wasn't an issue that they cared about because they actually don't care about the victims in these cases. They care about trying to score political points against President Trump.
White House officials would much rather talk about their hope that the House will soon vote to reopen the government.
There are no coincidences in Washington, D.C., and it is not a coincidence that the Democrats leaked these emails to the fake news this morning ahead of Republicans reopening the government.
Coming out of the shutdown, President Trump's approval on the economy in an AP poll is 33%.
It is,
but the Treasury Secretary urges Americans worried about.
It is messed up that the Democrats didn't do more to release this information when they were in charge. But I know why that is, because they also want to protect the rich, wealthy people who are on the list, like perhaps or maybe especially Bill Clinton. But also the Democrats didn't constantly talk about how only their political enemies are on the list, only they're on the list, and how they were just 1 week away from releasing them the moment they get back in office. And so, yeah, like both parties are likely implicated in this, but only one party was constantly like harping on it. And obviously that wasn't because of their commitment to releasing it. It was just like a cynical ploy to get Trump back in power. And now that he's back in power, it's like, oops, I had no idea that it would be so detrimental to like actively advocate for the release of a list of famous, rich, well-connected that I happen to be on multiple times.